Hiyo amigos, welcome to my channel. This story about What Naruto into the Spider-Verse Chapter 2. Subscribe to my channel, like to this video and enjoy watching. Let's start bro.
Without being given any explanation, Gwen instructed Naruto follow her and he'd done just that without any real question on his end. In the silence he perceived to be awkward, he was given time to take in his surroundings. All around people were still in mourning, many with their heads down. This itself wasn't exactly a foreign sight in the age of technology, but there was hardly a phone in Ha. Was almost as if the hustle and bustle of the city was muted. So, Naruto began, elongating the verbal tick. Where are we going exactly? We need to find somewhere secluded so we can test your powers, Gwen briefly explained, the bulk of her attention drawn to their surroundings. He followed her eyes to the side of a bank that doubled as a Telecaster which was currently displaying the grinning face of Peter B. Parker, Spider-Man's true identity. It Al's announced his funeral would be held later that same day, along with a brief interview with his wife, but they rounded the block before he could hear more. Peter Parker. Naruto muttered the name, realizing Spider-Man was right in that the world now knew who he was. Funny. The Peter Parker in my universe turned into the lizard, Gwen offered with an undeniable sadness molding her words. That doesn't sound very funny, Naruto said and just about slapped himself for doing so. Now more than ever he hated his inability to talk to girls. That's because it isn't, Gwen said following a sigh. I'm sorry to hear that, Naruto quickly added. He was very much interested in hearing more of her universe and how it differed from his, but knew that it was neither the place to bother her with his nerdy questions or theories. Naruto began, spurred on by another billboard displaying more pictures of Peter and a beautiful redhead whom he assumed to be Mary Jane. But he also felt, didn't deserve to speak his real name. Spider-Man said I should find his Aunt May first. Not sure why her specifically, but I did promise I would protect his family. And right, everyone knows who he was now. That's why it's so important we get you trained as much as we can, as quickly as we can. This Kingpin seems especially dangerous, not to mention this Prowler character. The Green Goblin who, by the way, is way scarier than the one in my universe, Gwen said. Doesn't help they're all working together, making this whole situation that much more dangerous. That, Naruto trailed off, ending in a sigh and a shake of his head. He hadn't actually considered it in that way. Suddenly, he was feeling much more apprehensive about was to come. So you're gonna teach me to fight? Sorta, Gwen said, throwing him a quick glance over her shoulder. Sorta, Naruto repeated. Well, I don't exactly know what all powers you have. Mine on the other hand give me superhuman strength, amazing reflexes, and the ability to stick to walls. I usually using a combination of all three, and so after a time, I kinda developed my own method of fighting. Don't really have a name for it, though, Gwen explained, finishing with shrug. Your own fighting style, huh? Naruto hummed. How about Gwen Kwando? Or maybe even Gwen Jutsu? You're such a dork, Gwen said following a snort. But from where Naruto was trailing behind Gwen, he could see her cheeks rising in what he recognized to be a smile, and that's what he was hoping for. They arrived at what once must have been a bustling industrial section of Brooklyn. Taking to the lot of an old warehouse of sorts, adjacent to some tall above-ground subw tracks. The warehouse itself was a massive brick building the color of rusted metal, with more broken windows than intact. A great portion of the ground-level section of th were tagged all over with various pieces of colorful art, giving the otherwise dull red surroundings a splash of color. Naruto was reminded of Miles and briefly wondered what happened to his friend upon recalling his things weren't in their dorm, and he couldn't think of any reasons as to course he was aware Miles had been trying to get himself kicked out of Vision since his second day, and it was possible he may have finally succeeded in doing so. If that were the case, he would sincerely miss his friend, but Naruto would also accept it. Alright then. Let's start by testing your strength, Gwen announced, shaking him from his thoughts. She motioned to an abandoned car in the lot, one of three. Try and Flover. I don't know about that, Naruto reluctantly said. Gwen narrowed her eyes at him in confusion. What are you reluctant about exactly? Assuming your powers are anything like mine, or this Spider-Man's, you should have superhuman strength. That's actually really cool, Naruto said, feeling a brief rush of excitement knowing he had at least some level of enhanced strength considering what he'd done to the SCH restroom, but his reluctance was elsewhere. But also not what I'm worried about. Then what are you waiting for? Gwen asked, crossing her arms with a hint of impatience to her question. Well, you want me to flip over someone's car. Not only is that illegal, but that's just wrong. I mean, I don't have a car, but if I did, I know I'd be upset if someone just flipped it over, Naruto explained. Gwen pitched a single pierced brow, staring at him hard. Are you being serious right now? Am I being serious about property damage? Yes, I think I am, Naruto said, taking a step back seeing her begin to frown. It has no freakin' tires. Gwen huffed, pointing out the fact. She proceeded to motion to the other two vehicles in a similar state of disrepair. None of them do. Shit, they probably all older than you and I put together. This is obviously some dumping grounds for unwanted cars. Or an upstart dealership going through some hard times, Naruto countered. Naruto. Gwen almost shouted. We don't have time for your bullshit right now. Fine, Naruto relented, feeling somewhat hurt by her tone and words. The time for jokes had clearly come and gone. I'm sorry if my parents taught me how to be Minfa's property. Gwen rolled her blues at him as he approached the car she first indicated. Naruto began stretching, touching his toes, followed by some lower back stretches, and finally squats before she interrupted him. And you're stretching now, Gwen groused behind gritted teeth and a palm to her face. What did I just say? Back problems wait for no one, Naruto said as he completed a couple of torso twists. Coach McGuire says so. Naruto. This time, Gwen did shout. Fine, Naruto shook his hands as he kneeled beside the car, in between the front and rear passenger doors. He knew he had superhuman strength, he just wasn't sure he had enough to fully lift a car, even one missing all four wheels, all of its electronics, and parts of the engine. This in mind, and the fact there was a cute girl to impress, he pulled at the undercarriage with nearly all of his strength. The car was immediately launched high into the sky, spinning violently 12 times before crashing loudly on the roof of the warehouse. Naruto drew a breath through his teeth as the car teetered on the edge for a few tense seconds before what must have been either a breeze or his luck which sent it crash back onto the concrete with a loud boom. It crumpled into itself like a crushed tin can, punctuating the fact he'd definitely gone overboard in his attempts. Ah, my bad. Naruto chanced a glance over to Gwen, finding her wide-eyed, stunned really. He wasn't sure if that was a good or a bad thing. Do it again, Gwen muttered after what seemed like a solid minute of stunned silence. She pointed at a different vehicle, a van that was once white. Pick it up this time. Flip it and definitely don't throw it again. Okay. Naruto agreed, unsure of how to take her reaction. He reached beneath the side of the van and with little preamble, lifted, using much less strength this time but couldn't get a good enough grip and only ended up flipping it over again. Wait. I can do it. Another 3 attempts resulted in the same outcome and Naruto was growing frustrated with his inability to complete what should have been a simple request. At least someone with superhuman strength. He rounded the front of the currently overturned van and, in his frustration, stomped on the bumper as one would a skateboard, sent flipping into the air. He caught it in its descent, feeling the weight of the van in his arms and through his body, but it wasn't nearly as heavy as he expected it to be. If he was to guess, the old clunker felt as though it weighed about 100 pounds or so, even though he knew it had to have been more than that. Naruto knew he must have been grinning like an idiot, but he didn't care as the knowledge of his superhuman strength fully processed. Like that? He asked after a moment of internal elation at one of his boyhood dreams having come true. Gwen was once again wide-eyed as she stared at him. Yeah, like that. Try to throw it again, but not at the building this time. Naruto looked about the lot, trying to find a direction in which he wouldn't create even more damage. Finding such a direction, he threw the van, watching as it sailed through the air for a few passing moments before crashing onto the concrete, sliding a ways before finally coming to a stop. That's just not fair, Gwen said, staring in the direction the van was thrown. What's not fair? Naruto asked. Nothing, Gwen muttered with a shake of her head. Alright then, we'll test your reflexes next. Sure, but how are we gonna? Naruto felt his senses flare and he moved his head to the side before he even realized what he was doing, marginally avoiding the chunk asphalt she'd thrown at him. What the hell was that? Why'd you just throw a? Gwen webbed another piece of asphalt and an actual rock, taking one in each hand. Before he could question her sanity, she lobbed both at him with differing speeds and targets. He avoided them, contorting his body, performing a few evasive somersaults, spinning in his leap to do so, all without fully realizing just how he was accomplished such feats. Reflexes are good, Gwen observed, speaking calmly as if she hadn't just tried to kill him. Strength is even better. Alright, let's test your speed next. Oh sure, but first, can we maybe address the fact you just hurled rocks at me? Naruto's words began calmly, as if he was recounting an uneventful weekend, ending in a shish, you could have hit me. Yeah well, that was kinda the point, Gwen said, offering him not an apology, but rather a shrug and a smirk. And besides, you're a big boy with powers, you probably wohave lived. Probably. Naruto deadpanned. Probably, Gwen repeated. Is it the hair? Naruto asked before thinking. Because I said I was sorry. With a flick of her wrist and a precarious smile, Gwen had another piece of asphalt in her hand and this one was bigger than any she'd thrown up until that point. No, it W. But now that you've reminded me, I'll give you to the count of 3. I think it's time we test just how fast you can run. You're kidding, right? Naruto asked nervously, taking a step back. 1. Gwen didn't answer him, instead beginning to count. Gwen, Naruto tried, his voice breaking as his senses began to flare in warning. 2. Gwen persisted, tossing and catching the asphalt in her hand leisurely, but her expression was sharp and dangerous, a smirk. Have I ever told you how hot your hair makes you look? Naruto clamored, hearkening back to memories of how his father would appease his mother whenever she was in. To his surprise, his words had the desired effect of making Gwen pause. The natural pink of her cheeks quickly began to darken and spread across her face, encompassing freckles. Naruto was almost relieved to see her sputter, interrupting her count up to his demise. As embarrassing as it was for him to admit that aloud, at least his words pr. to be the distraction he needed. If only he capitalized on it. Naruto mentally berated himself at the opportunity he squandered because following her brief lull in concentration, Gwen's wide eyes arrowed in dangerous displays. Oanger, the hand holding the asphalt reared back as if she were about to pitch a baseball. 3. Oh shit. Naruto was running before he even realized it. His initial run turned into a desperate sprint across the large lot and he could hear her footsteps resonating close behind him from of angry crunches as her feet pounded against the loose gravel. Gwen was quickly gaining on him. His senses forewarned him of the projectile that would have likely shattered his arm had he not avoided it. The thwip of a web shooter was Naruto's only warning she had. Reloaded and he snapped his head to the side, cringing as he heard and felt another rock whizzing by his ear. Naruto realized Gwen would soon catch him, if she didn't outright kill him with a loose piece of gravel first. Thinking as clearly as he could as he ran for his life, Naruto realized being out in the open would do him no good and he didn't think he could conjure the right words to Kaso. Without any viable option, he banked a hard left, almost falling in the process, and made towards the long-abandoned warehouse. Naruto nearly made it to one of the broken windows when he heard the sound of twin web shooters sound off. His peripherals briefly caught sight of 2 thin strands of webshoot pa both his flanks, attaching to the building he was trying to find refuge in. His senses flared once more but he did not react fast enough to avoid what impacted him from behind. The world as he saw it spun around but Naruto felt no real pain, only confusion as he struggled to understand what had happened. Everything spun twice more before Rai itself, and he realized he was staring up at Gwen. She had his hands pinned above his head, straddling him from above to keep him from moving. But he had no intention on fighting her. Naruto found himself once more enraptured by the girl above him, the only sound between them being their heavy breathing and the distant clatter of a passing train. Clouds of their condensate crashing against one another in their closeness. Gwen's body felt warm above his own and Naruto found the weight oddly pleasant. Some part of his rationale recognized just how compromising their position was, but he couldn't focus on anything but her flushed face. Her dirty blonde hair seemed to glow in the narrow light that invaded through the adjacent window, some of those same strands sticking to her cheeks from the sweat of her chase. It was then Naruto realized he was well and truly smitten by the cute blonde from another world. Gotcha. Yes, Naruto breathed out, both his eyes and voice dropping down without realizing it. Yes, you did. Naruto couldn't look away from her large blues, and for whatever reason, Gwen had yet to blink, returning his stare. Those same eyes, however, did narrow ever so slightly. There was something distinctly different about them this time. Before Naruto could lose himself in what this could possibly mean, a sudden shout interrupted them. My cars. As if burned, Gwen jumped off him, using his chest as a launching point, forcefully expelling his breath from him in a gasp. Sorry. Gwen apologized with a wince once she realized what she'd done. She webbed his chest before he could respond, pulling him to his feet. We have to go. Yeah. Naruto wheezed in agreement as he was pulled away by the same web. After being chased away from the warehouse by a vagrant man, they found themselves at a bus stop, taking refuge beneath the glass structure. What did ya know? I guess you were right, Gwen chuckled as she patted both her skirt and the pants she wore beneath free of dust. Yeah, well, it happens from time to time, Naruto said, following a laugh of her own. Well, all that aside, Gwen began as she allowed herself to fall back onto the bench. I'm kinda surprised by the extent of your powers. What do you mean? Naruto asked, taking a seat beside her, keeping two arm rests between them. He looked up to the gray sky through the glass structure ponderously. Was warm from his previous actives, but it really was cold, and if he recalled correctly, snow was forecasted. It wasn't rain, but it was close enough to remind him of what happened the day before. His elation abandoned him immediately. For starters, your reflexes are on par with mine, though you are a little slower, Gwen began, following a thoughtful hum. She interlaced her hands behind her head, staring the sky above as well. Your strength, on the other hand, well, you're definitely stronger than me. I've had to pick up overturned cars before and I somewhat struggled with. You went and tossed it like it was nothing. It actually kinda pisses me off. Naruto decidedly ignored her final sentence, feeling his pride as a man swell at her praise, and yet, his thoughts were elsewhere. Hey Gwen. Yeah, Gwen acknowledged, turning to regard him. Do you think we have time to go to his funeral? Naruto asked demurely. It's today but he didn't continue. Gwen was silent for a time as well, her expression falling into a mask of stoicism as she returned her attention to the sky above. We've got a lot of ground to cover if we're to get you ready to take on Kingpin. Not to mention I still need to get you a pair of web shooters and a suit, she said, looking to him again. But I suppose it wouldn't hurt. Pay our respects. Thank you, Gwen, Naruto said earnestly. She placed both hands at her sides and looked away, following an old truck that puttered by. Don't thank me yet. I don't plan on taking it easy on you just because you're to this. We don't have much time before Kingpin gets that collider up and running. We can go, but we have to make it quick. Naruto nodded, palming the flash drive in his pocket, recalling his promise to Spider-Man. He already decided he would do anything and everything in his power to keep Thevin if he was afraid of the coming consequences of his word. His phone began to ring within his pocket, interrupting the heavy and very much awkward silence that lingered between them. Naruto glanced at it and felt a greater throw his stomach like a concentrated gust of cold air. Oh shit. What is it? Gwen asked, leaning over his shoulder to look at his phone. It was his mother. She's going to kill me. Naruto hissed between grit teeth. He had not been in contact with her in more than 2 days, realign his record of a measly 8 hours. His Showed well over 50 missed calls, an equal number of voicemails, and triple the amount of text messages yet. Oh, is Whittle Foxy scared of his mommy? Gwen mocked. You don't know her like I do. Naruto didn't rise to her taunts, his tone even and serious. He had much more pertinent things to worry about. If I don't get into contact with soon, she's liable to have the whole Brooklyn Police Department looking for me. Ah, she wouldn't actually do that, would she? Gwen asked following a forced chuckle. Oh, she definitely would. When my old man was alive, he was the police commissioner for the Brooklyn PD. She still has contacts and believe me, she'll use them. She's due. Before. Naruto said. Oh, so you fathers, Gwen trailed off. I'm sorry to hear that, Naruto. Thanks, Naruto said, offering a strained smile. He had not intended on revealing the fact. It's been 2 years now. It sucks, but it is what it is. Tragedy seems to follow us, Gwen whispered so quietly he almost didn't hear her. He did, however, pretend he hadn't. Are you planning on telling your mother about your powers? Gwen asked after a heavy lull in their conversation. No, Naruto answered immediately with an accompanying shake of his head. Spider-Man said not to, and I understand why. Beyond that, knowing my mom, she'd throw before permanently grounding me. Which she'll probably do anyway, considering. Well, no, there's no way she'd ever let me be, but he couldn't finish his thought process. Was still more than hesitant to refer to himself as Spider-Man. Right, so what are you going to do now? Gwen asked. Face the music, Naruto said after releasing a long and heavy sigh. At least that's how I think the expression goes. How can you face? Anyway, the last thing we need is the cops to be looking for me while we train. I'll have to think of something to get her off my back. Do you have anything in mind? Gwen asked. Nope, Naruto admitted, popping the last syllable. Well, at least not right now, but I'm sure I'll think of something. I guess we'll postpone training for now, Gwen said, standing to her feet. In the meantime, I'll try and secure you a temporary suit and some web shooters. Ooh, something orange, Naruto said, taking a break from his conservation. Well, if you can, that is. It's kinda my favorite color. Orange, huh? Gwen hummed again. I'll see what I can do. No guarantees, obviously. You're the best, Naruto said just before his phone began to ring. Oh boy, I'd better get going now. I've got your number and you have mine. I guess I'll meet you later. Sounds like a plan, Gwen agreed. Oh, and Naruto, just be careful out there. Naruto wasn't given a chance to respond because Gwen was already on the move, running into a nearby alleyway. Before he could question as to why she would do that, re-emerged a moment later in a white and black spider suit, complete with a hoodie lined in pink. He watched on, awestruck as she swung by, giving him a passing salute before disappearing behind a nearby building. Holy shit, she's so cool, Naruto muttered to himself, waving idly in the direction Gwen had gone. Another phone call shook him from his stupor. Naruto sent his mother a text message announcing his upcoming arrival and made the active choice to ignore the following calls and messages until he arrived home. He had the keys to their apartment in hand, but his trepidation kept him from opening it. The choice was made for him as his instincts flared a second before the door swung open, revealing his mother. She was absolutely furious. Where have you been? Before, Naruto was feeling apprehensive facing his mother after ignoring her for 2 days. Now, as she stood before him, he was immediately reminded of just what he lose should he decide to continue down the path in which he was already on. Naruto entered, bypassing her, ran to hug his mother tightly, mindful of his newfound strength. Naruto, Kushina muttered, bewildered. She hugged him back regardless. I'm sorry I missed your calls, Naruto whispered, tightening his hold on Kushina. It's just that. It's been a rough couple of days. Kushina pulled back and stared up at him with an understanding but firm expression. I understand, but Naruto, don't let it happen again, she warned, wagging a finger at. I won't, Naruto said, but he couldn't promise her anything, so he didn't. Instead, he offered his mother a smile, the best he could conjure in that moment. Good, Kushina huffed, crossing her arms. She looked up at him once more, her eyes narrowing slightly. That aside, have you gotten taller? His mother wasn't exactly short, but neither was she tall, and before being bitten, he only eclipsed her by a couple of inches if he stood with a proper posture. Now, he was over a head taller than her. I think I hit another growth spur. Naruto offered weakly. I honestly don't know, I kinda woke up like this. Kushina hummed suspiciously at his explanation as she continued to scrutinize him. Oh, well, have you been working out as well? You seem, I don't know, broader too. Oh Yano. He palmed the back of his head with a nervous chuckle. Been doing some push-ups and sit-ups recently. We've also started lifting weights in gym class. Well, be careful, Kushina cautioned, finally smiling at him. I don't want you getting hurt. Will do, Mom, Naruto agreed, allowing his hands to fall into his pockets. He was reluctant about what he needed to ask next. So, Spider-Man's funeral's today and I was hoping I could go. Kushina looked outright ready to deny him, briefly scowling as she'd done many times before. Whenever he mentioned his hero, something stayed her usual rant, regarding with reluctant consideration. This was at the very least promising because normally, whenever he asked his mother if he could do something or go anywhere, she would immediately refuse unless it was school related. He only rarely managed to convince her otherwise once her mind was set, and on the few times he had, came at the cost of her smothering supervision. I know he was important to you, Kushina began slowly, as if considering her words. But you do realize just how many people'll be in attendance? Yeah, more than half the city, Naruto answered somberly. Yes, half the city, Kushina parroted tersely. It's not likely you'd be able to get close enough for it to matter. It would matter to him. Naruto felt an ugly sense of anger flare at his mother's callous words, but he couldn't outright deny her reasoning. Though he felt he owed it to Spider-Man to at the very latent his funeral. He may not have known him personally, but his father evidently did. He briefly considered revealing his father's connection to Spider-Man, but to do so would also mean revealing just how he'd come to discover that truth. A truth he wondered whether or not his mother was aware of. And if she were, her hatred of Spider-Man would either make complete sense, or none at all. Despite his current frustration with his mother, Naruto did still very much love her, and there was a strong part of him that wanted nothing more than to tell her everything was going through. To confess that he was just bitten by a radioactive spider, making him very much like the man she appeared to hate. But he could never do that. His mother was both incredibly strict and affectionate, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to pretend it didn't bother him. Though Naruto understood she had her way, at times her devotion could be suffocating. And if he were to reveal his new powers, he wasn't likely to see the light of day until he was 18 twice over. But at the end of the day, despite her flaws, Kushina was his mother, his world. There was no one more important to him, and nothing he wouldn't do to protect her. Even if that meant deceiving her. Please, Mom, Naruto pleaded tiredly. I know how you feel, how you felt about Spider-Man, but I want to be there, even if I can't get close. Kushina was silent another stretch before finally relenting with a drawn-out sigh. Fine, you can go, but I'm going with you, she stipulated. Thank you, Mom. Naruto accepted his mother's conditions with a sigh concealed as a nasal exhale. Don't you go thank me just yet, young man, Kushina began, her expression returning to its earlier suspicious disposition. The day before yesterday I received a particle from Vision informing me my son skipped class. And don't you dare try to use Spider-Man as an excuse. The news didn't break until late that night. Mind explaining, yo mister? Naruto had forgotten the fact and on the spot, struggled to come up with a proper excuse other than one based on a kernel of truth. You see, there's this girl, a girl. Kushina immediately cut in, taking a step into his personal space. What girl? If you just let me finish, Naruto couldn't help but bite out. I was working on a project when I accidentally got some super glue on my hand. Yeah. On my way to I accidentally bumped into a girl and kinda got my hand stuck in her hair. After we got free I was super embarrassed, so I hid back in my room for the day. Sorry I didn't mention it earlier. Kushina hummed as she continued to keep him pinned down with her stare, calculating blue eyes locked on his own, daring him to lie. Okay then, what about the night bee? She questioned. What? Was his unintelligent response. Naruto very much expected a follow-up question, just not that one. I was also informed on that phone call that you and Miles were seen out past your curfew 2 days ago, Kushina informed him. Naruto didn't have an immediate rebuttal or lie to explain that. At least not one that would get him out of the corner his mother backed him into. We went to meet his UNC. Finally admitted. Miles' uncle. Are we talking about the same uncle that? Kushina trailed off, appearing truly concerned instead of angry. Is his name Eren? She asked. It is, actually, Naruto said, surprised his mother knew. Perhaps he shouldn't be considering Miles' father knew his own. I won't ground you this time because you're being honest with me, but I want you to listen to me clearly, Naruto. You are, under no circumstances, to associate yourself with that man ever again. Am I clear? Kushina demanded. Yeah, sure, but why? Naruto asked curiously. You know Eren. I won't go into details for respect for Miles, but let's just say he's had more than a few encounters with the police, Kushina admitted reluctantly. He seemed like a pretty cool guy, though, Naruto said. What did he do? Just promise me you won't see that man, or sneak off like that again, Kushina demanded. Or cut contact with me for as long as you did. Naruto scarcely restrained a sigh, knowing his mother was fully aware and was playing on the weight of his word. I promise, he lied and it hurt him to do it. He could keep his promise to stay away from Eren easily enough, but if he was going to be Spider-Man, or at least protect his family and the city like Spider-Man, there be. In which he would inevitably have to sneak away. Something that was going to be incredibly difficult, he was now beginning to realize. Thank you, Naruto, Kushina said, gathering him into another embrace. Her head rested on his chest, her arms wrapped tightly around him in a meaningful way. I know. Be pushy sometimes and you may find my rules annoying, but I'm only trying to do what's best for you. I love you. I know, Mom, Naruto said, returning the gesture just as tightly, knowing that much was true. His mother was many things, but a liar was not one of them. And that's why lying to her that much more taxing on him. A quick internet search revealed the time and place of Spider-Man's service. Naruto decided to wear a dark gray jacket over a simple black button-up. He didn't own anything that would be appropriate for a service, as the last funeral he attended was his own father's and he'd grown since then. Naruto sent Gwen a message briefly calling off their meeting considering his mother would be coming along, and they were off. Spider-Man's chosen final resting place was a quaint New York cemetery that had quickly become overcrowded by a grieving city. Thankfully they had the foresight to hail. Instead of driving because they had to abandon their ride nearly halfway there due to the denser than usual traffic. They walked the rest of the way in complete silence. The crowds were massive and with traffic at a standstill, the NYPD had to step in to mitigate masses. What Naruto found both surprising and touching was that despite the gathering of people, it was oddly quiet. The sounds of the city were ever present, such as the thrum of idling vehicles and distant speech coalesced into unintelligible yet distinctly dour ambience. This way, Naruto said, taking his mother's hand in his to push past the sea of mourners donning Spider-Man masks of varying quality and tear-stained eyes. They had made it into the thick of the crowd within the cemetery, nearing as close to the service as they could when suddenly Naruto felt his senses flare to life. He stopped, idly feeling his mother bump into him from behind. He was immediately on alert. Keeping his mother close behind him, he ignored both her efforts to pull away and calling of his name as he searched the sea of faces for any possible signs of danger. That's when he saw a large and intimidating-looking bald man wearing heavy and spiked leathers, more than any one person rightly should, with a spider's web on his barahe towered amongst a group of other, similarly dressed and dangerous-looking men. He seemed to be staring at him, and for a moment, Naruto speculated the man may be Kingpin's people. He tensed as the man reached into his coat for something and pushed his mother further behind him, ready to act should the need arise. But it didn't, because the man pulled out a box of tissues which he used to wipe the tears in his eyes. Naruto blinked as he watched the other men swarm him, offering hushed words of comfort as they led the now openly bawling man away. Standing in his place was an ADM. Cute girl that immediately caught his attention for reasons beyond her initial looks. She was short in stature and looked to be of Asian descent. Her hair was jet black, reaching just beneath her pink cheeks, with a tuft falling in between her large brown EY. Wore a black vest over a white short-sleeved dress shirt and a black tie. Beneath that was a short checkered skirt with red and blue intersecting lines, a pair of girls' boots, in color with vibrant red laces, and socks with a matching color scheme, black with 3 red lines near the top. She wore a girl's uniform from which he couldn't associate with any school, reinforced by the teal backpack she wore. Naruto wasn't sure exactly what it was about the girl beyond her looks that caught his attention but found he couldn't look away. They maintained eye contact with one another through the distance and heavy crowds until a particular dense grouping of people pushed past him. When they cleared the was gone. Found you. Naruto nearly startled at the familiar voice and turned to see Gwen approaching, still wearing her vision uniform. That's when he realized that while his senses picked up something, it didn't exactly feel dangerous. She must have been who he sensed, but being new to the sensation, it was rather difficult to fully distinguish friend or foe in the moment. Oh, hey, Gwen, Naruto greeted her, only to remember too late he was still holding his mother, stand and immodestly let go. Who's this now? Kushina asked, finally making it to his side, briefly tossing him an odd look. Oh, this is, Naruto trailed, unsure of how to explain who Gwen was. She never texted him back, so he simply assumed she was still busy finding him a suit. Gwendolyn Stacy. Gwen introduced herself easily, offering Kushina her hand. I'm a friend from Vision. We have a few classes together. They had one, but Naruto wasn't about to correct her. Funny, Naruto's never mentioned you, Kushina said, accepting the girl's outstretched hand. Well, I am new to Vision, Gwen stated easily and charismatic. Naruto here's been showing me around. Oh, he also did this to me, she finished, closing her eyes with a squint to the side of her head where his hand had gotten stuck. Naruto flustered at the reminder. I said I was sorry. Yano. I don't think you ever did, Gwen said, smirking at him as soon as his mother's attention snapped to him. Naruto Namikaze, Kushina began, staring at him sternly. You glued your hand to her hair and you didn't even apologize. Do you not understand the importance of a wohair? Did I not raise you better? Naruto took a cautious step back as he struggled for a way out from beneath his mother's scrutiny. Yes, Naruto, why is that? Gwen said, standing at his mother's side, crossing her arms to match Kushina's stance. She subtly mouthed the words, payback, at him. Coincidentally, he was saved by the beginning of the service. At the front of the small church, on a stage, stood a beautiful woman with vibrant red hair. Naruto recognized H.B. Mary Jane Parker, Spider-Man's widow. Any embarrassment he was feeling in that moment was replaced by guilt and grief. A feeling amplified by the presence of the older woman standing beside and behind Ma Jane. Naruto knew her to be Spider-Man's aunt, May Parker. Both were solemn, the pain of their loss still fresh, and it was a feeling he could never forget. Naruto said nothing else throughout the entirety of the ceremony, listening as Mary Jane spoke fondly of her husband, recounting briefly of how they met. Their story was adorable one. The tale of how the nerdy kid charmed the cheerleader. One thing Naruto found interesting was the fact Mary Jane hardly mentioned her husband's tenure as Spider-Man. She spoke only of the man Peter B. Parker was. She ended eulogy by thanking all of those who had attended, and to those who also mourned their loss. Naruto. Gwen Soft's voice called him from his side. Naruto had pocketed both his hands as he watched the slideshow of Peter B. Parker and his accomplishments displayed on the large screen erected behind the stage Mary and May Parker once occupied. He could feel his mother wrap an arm around one of his, tugging at it gently, but he stayed in place. Naruto. I think it's time to go, Kushina said softly, tugging a little harder. It's starting to snow. I know, Naruto mumbled. I'll see you later. Naruto, Gwen said, patting his back. After prompt goodbyes, Naruto and his mother headed home. The trip was traveled in silence, and when they arrived, he went straight to his room. Feeling both emotional, physically drained, he fell asleep relatively quickly. In what felt like a blink of the eye, he woke up, wide-eyed and wired. Before Naruto realized what was happening, he was seated, staring at his window. Waving back at Hai, through the frosted glass, sporting something of a grin, was Gwen. It took him far longer than he would have liked to realize why that shouldn't have been possible. He lived on the 8th floor of a high-rise. It wasn't until Gwen knocked on his window, an expectant expression on her face, that Naruto remembered everything that had transpired in the past days. He jumped out of bed and rushed to open his window, letting her in. In doing so, he was blasted by a biting breeze, causing him to shiver. "Nice room you got here, Foxy," Gwen said in a whisper as she tossed a brown paper bag onto his bed, taking a falling seat onto it as well. "Thanks," Naruto muttered, glancing outside the window before shutting it following a shiver. His room was faintly illuminated by distant neighboring buildings, allowing Hai see Gwen up close in her suit. Her suit was a one-piece, comprised primarily of 3 contrasting colors. The upper part of her suit was white with a pink background to the gray webbing beneath along arms, elbows, and along the inside of her hood. The lower half of her suit was all black and of a reflective material, the color spiking up to her breast, revealing a faint tria weave design present throughout the entire suit. "You just gonna openly check me out like that?" Gwen asked, crossing her arms to conceal the last place he'd been staring. Naruto was as much a boy man he preferred to think as anyone else, but he truly was admiring her suit's design, not the body it contoured to. At least not that Tim. Though there was no way she would know that. "And nice shoes," Naruto blurted out, his eyes quickly falling to the blue dancer shoes. "Shit. I mean, I was looking at your suit. It's really cool." "I swear I wasn't." "Keep it down." Gwen shushed him. "I was just messing with you." "Geez, you're really easy to rile up, Yano." Naruto trailed off, realizing she was correct, and only sighed as he took a seat beside Gwen, though with enough distance so as not to invite any further opportunities her to embarrass him. He snatched his phone from his nightstand to look at the time. "It's 3:42 in the morning. What are you doing here?" "Well, just so you know, crime never sleeps, so get ready to do the same," Gwen said with a smirk, palming the paper bag at her side. "Not sleep, that is. Now I find a good coffee always helps, or energy drinks, if you're a degenerate," she said, glancing at the green and black cans near his computer. "Haha. Yeah," Naruto agreed with a grimace. "Anyway," Gwen continued, presenting him the paper bag. "I got you a little something." Naruto felt his heart jump in his chest. "Is that a dude? We're in your house," Gwen said, pressing a finger to his lips. "Why is it that I have to remind you to keep it down? I mean, what would your mother say if she found precious baby boy alone in a room with a girl?" Naruto's blush at Gwen's previous action abandoned, leaving him contrastingly pale, and he tensed at the thought. "After killing you," he muttered. "She'd kill me. Right. I'm not even going down that rabbit hole," Gwen said with a shake of her head. "Anyways, I managed to find you something. It's not much given that I'm kinda another universe with a credit card and a bus pass that don't work, but I think it should work for now." Naruto opened the bag with great anticipation, only for his face to fall immediately. He cleared his throat to find his voice. "You're kidding me, right?" He opened the bag to find a small foam fox mask within. He picked it up slowly, holding it by the thin white strip, before looking up to find Gwen wearing her own mask of amusement, grinning widely and only barely restraining her giggles. "No, I thought it'd be fitting," Gwen said with humor in her voice. "You did say you wanted something orange." "Well, yeah, but this won't even cover my whole face," Naruto muttered. "You won't know unless you try," Gwen said, fluttering her eyes at him. "Come on, put it on. I tried really hard to find this." With a sigh and a great deal of disbelief, Naruto slipped the mask over his head, feeling as though he probably looked as dumb as he felt. Was this really the best use? Find. His answer came in the form of a sudden flash, momentarily blinding him in the dark room. When his vision finally returned to him, he found Gwen's grinning face glowing. Light of her phone. That's a keeper, Gwen said in an excited whisper. Naruto felt his face burn behind the ridiculous mask. Hey, you can't do that. Delete it. You need to keep it. Gwen was in the middle of shushing him again when both their attention snapped to the door. Rapidly approaching footsteps warned them of Som. Incoming. Shit. Naruto panicked. Gwen snatched the mask from his face and pushed him into bed, a gloved hand covering his mouth as her face hovered dangerously close to his, her hair tickling his forehead. Play it cool, she instructed. With a flick of her wrist, she pulled herself to the ceiling, hanging on with both her hands and feet behind her. She webbed the edge of his covers, which had been Hafaza tossed aside earlier, pulling them over Naruto, to cover him just as the door burst open, revealing Kushina with a wooden baseball bat in hand. She quickly scanned the RO, looking for something. Where is she? Someone. What? Naruto muttered, acting as he had just been awoken. I clearly heard a girl's voice in here, there's no doubt about it, Kushina said, moving quickly to his closet. What? No, Mom. I was watching a video before I fell asleep and I accidentally played it when I was checking the time, Naruto said, verbally weaving the first story that ca. Mind. And you were talking to your phone? Kushina asked. Her voice sounded muffled from the closet to accompany the sound of hangers sliding and crashing against one Anyo. Because I clearly heard your voice too. I was talking to myself, Naruto said, briefly glancing up at Gwen, her attention on the closet. You know, I'm kinda weird like that. Kushina appeared from within the closet, the slugger now resting on her shoulder, every bit the picture of the mother of a mobster. She hummed as she looked about the approaching his bed to peek beneath it. That is true, she said following a hum, walking to his bedside to run the bat along the underside of his bed. Yano, you didn't have to agree so easily, Naruto muttered. Are you sure there wasn't a girl in here? Kushina asked, ignoring his words. The voice sounded so clear, she said as she approached his window, opening it to look out. Mom, it's snowing outside and we're on the 8th floor. Where could I possibly be hiding a girl? Naruto said, hoping dearly his mother wouldn't look up as he was. Gwen's attention was on his mother, and if for no other reason, he was glad they had high ceilings. Could ya close the window? It's cold, Naruto urged. Kushina hummed again, seemingly focused on something outside before she finally shut the window. What video were you watching? Naruto wasn't expecting that question, even though he probably should have. As such, he had no immediate answer. A playthrough. What playthrough? Kushina immediately asked, tapping the bat against her shoulder in a way he found unsettling. I don't remember. Look, it was one I was watching before I fell asleep, Naruto said, growing exasperated at his mother's continued line of questioning. I closed out of it. Was about to go back to sleep before you barged in, swinging a freaking bat. Was it one of those videos? Kushina questioned, pointing the bat at him briefly before returning it to her shoulder. I know you're getting to that age where you're interested. Quote. Mom. Naruto shouted, his voice rising to a higher octave and his face burning as he tried his hardest not to look up at Gwen. His sensitive hearing revealed her muffled exhales indicating the humor she found in the situation. We're not having this discussion at 3 in the morning. Now, Naruto, I know it may be hard for you, not having your father around to discuss these things, Kushina began slowly. But just know that I'm here for you. If ever have any questions regarding your body. Naruto shot out of bed with a speed that surprised even himself, swiveling behind his mother he began to usher her out of his room. I'm tired and I want to go back to be. Should too. You've got work and I've got school tomorrow. Okay. We'll postpone this for now, but again, I'm here if you ever want to talk, Kushina offered as she allowed herself to be pushed out of his room. No, we'll never speak of this again. Good night, Mom, Naruto said, quickly shutting the door in her face. Good night, my precious fox. Kushina sang from behind the door. Naruto's head fell, his forehead thumping loudly against his door, and it remained there as he listened to his mother's light and retreating footsteps. Gwen dropped down graciously beside him with a barely audible thump. So that was something. There was amused sympathy in her voice, and it only added to his embarrassment. Please don't tell anyone, Naruto whispered, his face still firmly planted on the door. Who would I tell? Gwen offered with a shrug of her shoulders before taking a seat on his bed once more. All that aside, your real suit's still in here. That broke Naruto from his shameful stupor. Real suit? He asked, turning to look at her from over his shoulder. While this certainly made for a fun prank and a great reminder, Gwen began, swinging the cheap fox mask around her finger. I don't expect you to go swinging around in this in your pajamas. Now look inside. Naruto made sure to lock his door before returning to her side. He watched as she overturned the bag, dropping a red and blue pile onto the bed. Is this another joke? He asked cautiously. No more jokes, Gwen said, holding up the suit. I got this from a costume store. It was the last one they had and it was expensive, so, Yano, you're welcome. Yeah, but it's got fake muscles on it, Naruto pointed out pitifully, indicating to the padded biceps and abs. It's also about your size and has a mask that seems durable enough, and it's officially licensed, Gwen added, throwing it at him. And most importantly, it'll work for now. I guess, Naruto muttered, feeling somewhat disheartened to find no orange in the suit whatsoever. Suit up. We're going out for some practice, Gwen said, standing to her feet. Before Naruto could question as to what she meant, he reflexively caught a pair of white cuffs she tossed at him. No way, Naruto quietly gushed. Are these web shooters? Yeah, it's my backup set. Now just a heads up. They are an earlier model, so they're a little worn and more sensitive than my current web shooters, but auto-adjust for size. They should fit you, Gwen said. Naruto looked up to Gwen before standing, reversing their roles. Thank you, Gwen, he said sincerely. Gwen turned away, moving towards his window, putting on her mask again. Don't mention it. Now suit up and remember to wear something warm and flexible beneath. Meet me on the roof. Naruto watched her go, feeling his heart beat loudly in his chest, and he wasn't sure it could all be credited to the anticipation. After all, it was thanks to Gwen that he was one step closer to fulfilling his promise to Spider-Man. Naruto stepped out into the chill of the early morning, shivering not only because it was cold but also because of his innate fear of heights. It didn't help that it had been snowing all night, blanketing the fire escape in a slick layer of snow. Oh boy. Here we go, Naruto tried to encourage himself, his hand gripping the railing with enough force to mold the steel around his fingers. One by one, excruciating floor. Ascended the narrow and shaky metal stairs until he finally made it to the roof, where he found Gwen seated atop the elevator roof in trance, her masked face illuminated by light of her phone. Do you want me to text you a copy? Gwen asked with a chuckle, turning her phone to show the picture she'd taken earlier. Naruto flinched at the image, seeing she'd in fact already made it her wallpaper. Would you delete it if I asked nicely? I can even add a cherry if it'll help my case. He pleaded. Nope. Gwen immediately denied, locking and pocketing her phone somewhere in the collar of her suit. What took you so long anyways? Naruto briefly wondered where the phone sat in her suit, but decided to focus on her question. Yeah, well, I've never really been good with heights. And it doesn't help are covered in snow. You do know you have the ability to stick to virtually any surface, remember? Gwen pointed out. A little snow shouldn't affect you as long as your feet are firmly planted. Ground. I'll be sure to implement that once I know how to control it, Naruto retorted. I nearly tore the ceiling apart in my dorm the other day. You also ruined my hair, Gwen said, falling from her perch to stand before him with hands on her hips. Naruto would have liked to strongly disagree with that statement, but he didn't want to test Gwen's patience on the roof of a 12-story high-rise, especially not after her previous reactions to his comments. Right, so how do I control that? He asked. You just do, Gwen said, walking back to the rooftop entranceway, then vertically up the surface, coming to a stop midway. She stared at him expectantly through the expressive large eyes of her mask. Yeah, I'm gonna need you to be a little more specific than that, Naruto urged. So far I've only stuck to things by accident, or when I'm stressed. Or at least that's what I seems like. I'm not gonna lie to you and pretend to know exactly how it works, Gwen began, crossing her arms. But I know how I do it, it's just kinda hard to put into words. What do you mean? Naruto asked as he approached where Gwen stood horizontally. I guess just act like it's natural. Gwen said, tilting her head, the eyes of her mask narrowing as if in thought. Yano. Like how you can control your own breathing, we want to if you think about it. Naruto was now actively aware of his breathing, taking over from his natural instincts, but his attention was primarily on her mask, his own rudimentary one, hopefully conk. His reaction. Whoa, how did you get your mask's eyes to move like that? He asked excitedly. One thing at a time, Naruto, Gwen said. Again, treat it like a normal body function, or maybe something you do every day. Walk up to the wall, expecting you stick, and should stick. And when you want to let go, just let go, she finished, flipping off the entryway, landing in a crouched position. She was so cool. Naruto cleared his throat to keep his composure. So basically I'm supposed to believe in myself. He surmised. Pretty much, Gwen said, shrugging her shoulders. It's important not to panic, though, or you might lose concentration and fall. Or continue to stick when you don't want. Yano. Like you did with my hair. Are you ever gonna let that go? I did say I was sorry. Naruto, out of habit, palmed the back of his head. I really do like the way it looks, Yano. Just stick to the wall, Gwen ordered, thumbing in the direction of the wall she'd just dismounted. Naruto chose to do as he was asked because, being as cautious as he was with heights, he felt as though knowing how to stick to walls could very well save his life. Especially was to try web swinging, which he was and wasn't looking forward to. Like breathing, Naruto repeated to himself, pressing a foot to the wall. When he applied weight to his single foot, it slid down as one would expect. Remember, make yourself believe you can do it, Gwen said, moving closer to him. Because you can do this, Naruto. Right, I can do this, Naruto repeated, placing his foot against the wall once again, truly believing it would stick. He felt a smile split his face, feeling his foot stick to the throw his shoe, not budging even when he pulled down or away. Holy shit, I'm doing it. Good, now your other foot. Remember, don't panic if you feel like you're about to fall, because you won't. Your superhuman strength should allow you to stand without fall your ass, Gwen said, coming even closer to his side to place a hand on his back. If nothing else, I won't let you fall. Got it, thanks, Naruto breathed out, feeling warmth bloom within him at her touch. He slightly shook as he tried to find a way to lift his other foot, which was currently supporting all his weight. Slowly, he did just that, before quickly placing it beside his other foot. Look, Gwen, I'm doing it. I see that, Gwen said, laughing alongside him. She continued to keep a hand on his back in support. Now try walking up a little. Do it just like you would if you were on the street. Naruto took a few calming breaths, feeling his heart racing loudly in his chest in equal parts excitement and trepidation. He tentatively raises his right foot, feeling it come just as he hoped it would. Doing as Gwen recommended, he moved his left foot forward, sticking, then his right, and so on without any problems until he ran out of wall. This is so cool, Naruto said with a cheer as he turned around and walked back down the wall, and then up again, repeating this a few more times before stopping midway. Really is easy. You do catch on pretty quickly, Gwen praised. With that out of the way, let's practice some web swinging. Naruto fell on his back with a thud, sinking into the snow. For as long as he was a fan of Spider-Man, Naruto always imagined himself swinging through the New York skyline. Maybe saving a cute girl from peril while doing so. But was one thing he failed to consider, and that was exactly what that entailed. It was all he could think about now. The idea of jumping from a building, swinging hundreds of feet in the air, it made him extremely nervous. He regarded Gwen, who was looking down at him where he'd fallen with arms crossed and a masked eye pitched inquisitively. You okay? She asked. We're going to practice web swinging here. Naruto asked, still laying in the snow. Like right now? Well, yeah. Where else would we practice? Gwen asked. Oh, I don't know. Maybe some low-hanging trees. Naruto suggested. I'd even be okay with a street light. Are you really that afraid of heights? Gwen asked with what sounded to be genuine concern. No more than anyone else, I guess. It's just that, well, we're really high up and I don't want to know what'll happen to me if I fall, Naruto said. I'll give you that, Gwen said as she rounded him. With a flick of her wrist, she webbed his chest to pull him to his feet. We'll find smaller buildings to start with, maybe to the industrial district, and get you started in a warehouse or something. It's how I learned. You learned inside a warehouse and you wanted me to start from up here. Naruto muttered. We don't exactly have the luxury of time, Naruto, Gwen stated seriously. And speaking of time, we'll have to worry about swinging lessons later. If I heard correctly, your mother works early in the morning, right? Yeah, what about it? Naruto asked. I'm guessing she says goodbye to you before going to work, maybe the two of you have breakfast together, catch my drift. Gwen continued. I guess that means our practice'll have to wait until tomorrow then. Naruto concluded. That and I've been up for a long time and I'm getting kinda tired. I'd like to get in at least a few hours before we continue with your training, Gwen said. But there is on. I want a test before I go. Oh yeah, what's? Naruto's senses flared to life just in time to bring his right forearm, blocking Gwen's sudden kick aimed at his head. He grunted in pain and slid in the snow from the sheer of the attack, his arm immediately throbbing in pain. What the hell? Naruto shouted, shaking his aching arm. That really hurt. Your enemies won't take it easy on you, Naruto, and neither will I, Gwen said as she took on a fighting stance, feet apart, arms up. Naruto also put his arms up, almost mimicking her stance, but he hadn't the faintest idea of what he was actually doing. Shouldn't you teach me something, first? Again. Know how to fight here. Follow your instincts, Gwen said before running at him. That tells me nothing. Naruto yelped as he tried his best to dodge the flurry of fists and feet lobbed at him. He was successful for the most part, and it almost felt as though own body was moving on its own accord, yet he knew that not to be case. After what felt like an eternity fighting for his life, which involved no actual fighting on his end, Naruto was finally allowed a reprieve. In avoiding a spinning kick, he managed perform a backwards flip, once again surprising himself by landing on the elevator entryway in a crouch. Thankfully, Gwen did not continue her onslaught. Exactly what was that supposed to accomplish? Naruto asked through rough nasal exhales. He wasn't exactly tired, simply winded and in continued disbelief at her braze. Attack. You were supposed to try and fight back, not just run away, Gwen said, crossing her arms. Yeah, but how? How many times do I have to tell you, I don't know how to fight? Naruto exclaimed with arms outstretched in exasperation. You can't just start swinging and expect me to know what to do. Fair enough, Gwen relented with a sigh. I did have more time to figure it out myself, but hey, at least you were able to dodge most of my attacks, so that's something Yeah, Naruto agreed following a nervous chuckle. He didn't want to admit that he wasn't consciously in control of his actions. Then I guess there isn't much more we can do tonight. Really, I only came here to give you your suit, Gwen said, checking her phone again. I'd say I'd see you at school tomorrow, but I probably won't be going back. I only enrolled to find you. With that, Naruto was reminded that Gwen was from another universe. Do you miss your world? He asked and only then realized just how muted everything sounded. With the snow that layered everything around, the large eyes of Gwen's mask fell until nearly half-lidded. What brought this on? She asked lowly. I imagine you have friends and family waiting for you back home, maybe a boyfriend too. Naruto continued while selfishly and even more childishly yet hoping that was the case. Gwen turned away. I do miss my mom and my dad. It's why it might seem like I'm pushing you so much. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I do want to get back home and you're the one who can help me. But he didn't want her to go. Naruto realized he was behaving irrational, and more than likely hormonal, but he really did like Gwen. So much so, he knew he had to help her return, even if that meant her go. It would be selfish to do otherwise. I understand, and he did because he couldn't imagine being separated from his mother, especially after knowing the pain of being forever separated from his father. Naru removed his mask to more personally address her despite her keeping her back to him. Gwen, no matter what happens, I promise I'll do everything I can to get you back home. Gwen stared silently off into the night and Naruto wondered if maybe he was being too forward in expressing himself. That was before she glanced at him from over her shish. Thank you, Naruto, she said in just above a whisper. Naruto watched her approach the ledge, ready to leave. But he wasn't ready for her to leave. Guess I'll be seeing you later then. He called out after. I'll call you sometime after you're done with school. That should give me time to get some rest and maybe some more information on Kingpin before we make our next M. Gwen said. Naruto wanted to ask exactly what that entailed, but what she said next gave him pause. And by the way, I don't have a boyfriend, Gwen said before jumping, disappearing into the darkness of the distance. Morning came in a blink of the eye. Naruto felt as though his head just hit his pillow before his alarm sounded off, waking up from a dreamless and all too short sleep. He was in the middle of dressing himself, ensuring he was wearing his cheap suit beneath his uniform when his mother's breakfast beckoned him. After having not eaten for almost 2 days, he was more than hungry. Sleep well? Kushina asked with a chipper smile. She appeared to be perfectly well rested and in high spirits. Naruto stared at his mother with an empty expression, his hair thoroughly groomed by his bed, with his eyes red and heavy from lingering fatigue. She, on the other hand, dressed in her business attire, a gray suit with a matching knee-high skirt, hair neatly tied in a neat pony's tail, ready to face the world. Meanwhile he wanted nothing more to fall face first into his pillow and sleep for at least a couple of days. Considering you burst into my room at 3 in the morning, swinging a bat, I could use a few more hours. Any chance I could convince you to let me stay home today? Asked fruitlessly, knowing the answer already. Considering you weren't supposed to leave Vision in the first place, no, Kushina denied. Fair enough, I guess, Naruto, who was far too tired to argue, relented, instead digging into his breakfast with a healthy hunger. I didn't get to tell you yesterday but I've got to go in early today. Can I trust you to make it to Vision by yourself today? Kushina asked, taking a seat opposite to him at table. She seemed content to watch him scarf down his food. You act like I haven't done it before, Naruto muttered after washing a mouthful of eggs and bacon with orange juice. You've also never behaved like a delinquent before, Kushina countered, taking a composed sip of her own juice. I skipped class once and somehow I'm a delinquent? Naruto questioned. That's how it starts, Kushina said following a hum. You also snuck out with Miles. Next you'll be sneaking out to meet with girls. If I'm not careful, you'll make me a gran. Far too soon. Not that I don't want at least 7 grandbabies but you have to wait until I'm at least. Mom, Naruto shut his eyes and pinched his temples, feeling a slight migraine coming on. I get it. I'll go to school. Just stop, please. After eating considerably more than he was used to, Naruto began his walk to school, taken with no particular purpose. Snow blanketed the streets in sections untouched by flow of traffic, vehicular or human. It was a rare sight that only lasted as long as the worn yellow cab allowed as it puttered down the street. It would seem he wasn't the only one who thought to stay home. He just wasn't allowed to, so he continued on that cold and dour morning. Naruto was not above planting his face in his phone, though he made sure to walk with it raised high enough in front of him to allow his peripherals to catch sight of any danger. As he did so he rolled through his short list of contacts, which sadly contained more takeout spots than actual friends. He decided to call Miles and his phone rang 3 times before he answered. Hey, Miles answered lowly, his voice sounding scratchy. Miles was as big a fan of Spider-Man as he was. There a reason you weren't at our dorm yesterday? Naruto asked, finding he had more trouble than usual to find the words he wanted to say. Miles was silent for a moment. I kinda had a fight with my old man. He found out we snuck out to meet Uncle Aaron and things just blew up. I wanted to take this chance. Drop out of vision, but my mom convinced me to go back. Yeah, my mom found out too. Naruto cringed. And Miles, I know we've been over this before, but I really think you should give Vision a shot. Hate to think of it this way, B. No, it'll look good when it comes time to apply for colleges. I guess so, but Miles didn't sound convinced. I just don't feel like I belong, Yano. He did. Come on, Miles. You're smart. You know as well as I do you deserve to be at Vision, Naruto said, trying to encourage his friend. But I don't have any friends at Vision. Miles countered. Ouch. Naruto chuckled, pressing a hand to his chest, but the pang he felt then and there was very much real. He was just used to hiding it. That hurt, Miles, right in my breaky heart. Aw shit, I didn't mean it like that. Miles shouted. Naruto, we're cool, man. You know what I meant. Naruto forced another laugh. Yeah, I'm just messing with you, Miles. I know you miss your friends from your old school. I get it. I have friends from my old school. Too. Friends who only talked to him when he initiated conversation, but he didn't like to think about that. Yeah, it sucks, Miles said after another stretch of silence. But Yano, just because you're going to Vision doesn't mean you can't still hang out with them. Naruto tried to reason and cheer his friend up. Come on, man, you can be alone with those stuck-up assholes. I mean, isn't it weird that even the nerds look down on us? Right. Miles agreed readily, as if he was greatly vindicated by his words. So, you coming back or not? Naruto asked. I already told you my mom talked me into coming back, Miles said slowly and with what sounded like a smile molding his words. But you know I got your back, man. Thanks, Miles. Naruto's smile was real that time. You know I got your back too. Alright. Miles elongated the single word. This is getting awkward. I'll see you at school. See you then. Naruto agreed with a final chuckle. Just as he pocketed his phone, Naruto became incredibly alert. He stopped abruptly to observe his surroundings but didn't see or hear anything that would indicate imminent danger. And when he faced forward to continue his trek, he jumped at the appearance of the cute girl from the day before. He stared at her and she stared right back, her large auburn eyes regarding him with, oddly enough, mischief in them. This was despite the seeming image of innocence presented by smiling sweetly at him with her hands clasped behind her back. Hello, she said, closing her eyes to wave at him. Hey, Naruto said, unknowingly waving back. You're just like me, aren't you? The girl seemed sure of whatever it was she was referring to. She'd opened her eyes once more, keeping him entrapped by her those large eyes. He could only guess as to what she was referring to. You mean like Japanese? Because I'm pretty sure I'm like 3/4 Japanese. You see my dad. No, silly. She interrupted with a giggle. I mean, you're a spider girl too. Wait, what did you mean spider girl? I'm a man. If anything, I'd be a Spider-Man. Naruto corrected, standing straight with his chest forward. That was before his posture deflated again, realizing a short moment later what he'd done. Do you usually reveal your secret identity so easily, or do you even keep it a secret? The girl asked as she tapped her finger on her cheek inquisitively. Gah. Naruto buried his hands in his hair. I wasn't supposed to say that. I didn't mean to say that. I mean, I'm just kidding, haha. The girl only hummed in a way that clearly indicated he was being very stupid. Who are you anyway? Naruto asked in defeat. How did you know what I am? You're not very bright, are you? She asked with a tilt of her head before taking a step towards him. I just told you. You're like me. I could sense it, just like I did yesterday. Though I admit, I wasn't entirely sure it was you I was sensing until now. You could sense me. Naruto took a cautious step back until his own senses flared to life again, this time much stronger. Again, in place of danger, there was another feel. One almost of familiarity. Like he knew who the girl was, but he just hadn't seen her in a long time. Just like with Gwen, Naruto's thought process finally concluded what his instincts were already aware of. I'm guessing you're from another universe too, the girl continued, choosing not to answer his question. You must be considering this world's Spider-Man is gone. Come with me, Naruto said, grabbing the girl by her hand without fully considering what he was doing. It would seem he would be missing another day of school. Naruto brought the mysterious girl back to his apartment, where she immediately proceeded to make herself at home, going through his pantry in search of snacks. Sugar-free sugar cookies, she muttered as she looked at the package as though the mere sight offended her, and then to him as if were his fault. Is that even possible? Mean, isn't the whole point of sugar cookies that, the sugar? Ah. Well, and what's with the flavored seltzer? She continued her diatribe. If you're going to flavor carbonated water, then when not commit and drink a real soda? My mom doesn't like anything with GMOs. Naruto offered weakly. That isn't even. Dude, your pantry's filled with instant ramen. The girl motioned to the 3 shelves lined with various forms of noodles, both in cups and in packages. Besides, in my time we're over that dumb fad. I know, I've tried explaining that to my mom, but Naruto blinked a few times. Wait, what do you mean by your time? Oh right. The girl cleared her throat before abruptly jumping onto the kitchen table. My name is Penai Parker, and I'm from New York in the year 3145. I was bitten by a radioactive spider that I know share a physic link with. He lives inside my father's robot and we're best friends forever. Parker. Naruto stared at the girl, unsure of how he was supposed to take what she had just said. Meanwhile, Penai was still standing on his table, one hand on her hip while the auth sending him a peace sign pressed to her temple in a pose he'd seen in many a anime. After a loud silence, the girl dropped her pose and looked down at him. I know my presentation's a little lacking without my robot, but you seem to be stunned. A grin suddenly split her face, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. See something? Like, maybe. That time it was Naruto who unnecessarily cleared his throat, feeling his face heat up immediately at the insinuation. No, I'm actually just a little surprised because. Also bitten by a radioactive spider like 2 days ago. Though I am from this universe, but, you're not the only one I've met who isn't. Penai's smile fell away into intrigue. I'm not. No, and please get off the table, you're gonna get it dirty. At this, Penai huffed but did as she was asked with crossed arms and a cute pout. Thanks, Naruto muttered and immediately wondered why he thanked her in the first place. One wasn't supposed to jump on another's kitchen table, the place where oath. 8. To begin with. Yesterday. Well no, the day before yesterday, I met a girl who was also bitten by a radioactive spider, who was also from another universe. And I'm sure I know what caused it. The whole multiverse thing, I mean. You do? Penai asked. Yeah, I'm like 93.2% sure, Naruto muttered before recounting of the events leading up to his current predicament, something that didn't get in easier. I'm sorry to hear that, Penai offered a genuine look of sympathy. But I'm also gonna need your help getting home. I don't even know your name yet. Naruto Namikaze. He smiled at the girl. But don't worry, I'll make sure you get home too. The perpetual blush on the girl's cheeks seemed to darken ever so slightly at his words. Anyway, if you give me the flash drive and a computer, I should be able to rearcode, making sure that when you destroy the collider, I and this other spider girl sent back to our respective time, or universe. Right. Naruto was once more reminded Gwen would eventually have to return to her own world, leaving his. Yeah, okay. If you think you can do it. We hadn't actually considered how we were supposed to return her beyond destroying the collider. Then I guess you're lucky you met me. Penai said with a smirk, snapping up the flash drive from his hand. Oh wow, this thing's an antique. Now, your computer. Naruto brought Penai up to his room, showing her his computer. Penai observed the room with a critical eye, making him nervous, before looking to his computer, scowling slightly. What's this? She asked. My computer. Naruto was unsure of what to make of her. Something wrong. It's so old. Penai complained, lightly kicking the tower. Hey, I'll have you know that PC is the best money could buy, 3 years ago. Naruto said, feeling offended, crouching to hug his computer defensively. His mother worked hard for the few luxuries he was allowed. Well, I'm sorry, but it just won't do, Penai said, crossing her arms. My robot can gut the flash drive and make the adjustments needed, but I need to connect him up to a computer to make any real changes. Any idea where we could find a computer with a little more power than this thing? Yeah, sure. But just so you know, this thing can run the latest Call to Duty at low settings making 60 frames, and medium to high at 30 and you really don't. Naruto finished with a sigh. Oh, I'm a gamer myself, Penai said, taking a falling seat on his bed, bouncing a few times. We're on like the 400th iteration, but I mostly play JRPGs. That's so cool. Hey, did they ever make a third quarter life? Naruto asked hopefully. Ugh, you're so old. Penai rolled her eyes. And no, they never did. Hey, I'm only 15. Naruto retorted and remembered she was from the future and wondered if they shared the same universe. By the way, you said your last name W. Parker. The same as Spider-Man. Does that mean that we're somehow related? Penai finished for him, rubbing her arm nervously. Yeah, I thought that too at first. That maybe he may have been my great-great-grandfat something, but after doing some research, I found some names and dates related to major events that happened before this year are different from my universe. Oh. Naruto palmed the back of his head. I'd ask like what differences, but we probably don't have the time. As for the computer you need, I'm wondering if Spider-Man have some sort of supercomputer. Yano. Like one to help him fight crime or something. Maybe he even has a cave, like Batman or something. You mean like a spider cave, huh? Penai asked with a small smile. It would stand to reason. I know I have one. Well, it's not so much a cave but a base of operations. Kinda do refer to it as my girl cave, which I'm never saying out loud again. Ya know what? Maybe Spider Cave isn't such a goofy name after all. Naruto cleared his throat unnecessarily, feeling his face grow warm. No, but it is a little on the nose, he admitted. Back to the point, considering this computer exists, do you know how we could possibly gain access to it? Penai asked. I might. Naruto pulled out his phone to call Gwen, only to stop short when he recalled what she said the day before. She was likely trying to get some sleep and he didn't. To bother her if he could avoid it. Beyond that, he needed to learn how to be more self-sufficient eventually because Gwen and Penai both had to return to their worlds. So, Penai pressed after a prolonged moment's consideration. Find my Aunt May first. Naruto recalled the words clearly. Though his reluctance came in that he wasn't ready to protect anyone should the need arise, but time stood still for no one and he'd yet make good on his word of protecting Spider-Man's family. The longer he wallowed in his reluctance, the more danger they would be in. I know where we need to go, Naruto said. Finding where May Parker lived was easier than Naruto was comfortable with. Her name, along with that of Peter and Mary Jane Parker, were amongst the top search result. The fourth being the street in which Peter Parker grew up and where his aunt still lived. Such public information proved to further concern him, as well as to motivate him to hasten his training. Even if that meant swinging from the highest building to do so. He sincerely hoped it didn't have to come to that so soon. It's certainly homely, Penai observed. They stood amongst a crowd of Spider-Man supporters and members of the media, who all gathered around the entire block surrounding the humble home of May Parker. Like with the funeral, there was a heavy police presence keeping them all at bay. How are we supposed to get to May around with everyone around? Naruto was more so thinking aloud. The gathering was more of a vigil with those who continued to agree. Attendance, but it was nonetheless an inconvenience to what they had to do. Leave that to me, Penai announced just before taking hold of his hand this time around, pulling him a short distance from the quaint suburb to an alley between two apartment complexes. Once there, she produced what looked to be a transparent tablet from within her backpack. Before Naruto could question her on to how hiding in a dingy alley could possibly be any help, he felt his skin crawl seeing a spider do just that from behind her shoulder. Spider! He all but shouted while frantically pointing at the offending arachnid. He's my friend. Silly, Penai said with a smile as she nuzzled the spider pressed against her cheek affectionately. It's also how I pilot my robot. Naruto was about to question her sanity considering her closeness to a spider of all things, but her few final words caught his greater interest. Pilot. Wait. How big is your? The ground rumbled ever so slightly, but Naruto felt it through his feet just as he heard the subtle crunch of crumbling brick. All of his senses warned him that the incoming unknown was descending on him from above. Acting further out of instinct, Naruto took Penai into his arms and jumped away just as something large dropped down behind him. He landed in a perfectly balanced crouch. Nearby fire escape handrail with the girl squirming in his arms. Despite Penai's pounding on his chest and the kicking of her feet, the narrow foothold the railing provided, and the relative height, none of that registered with Naruto as he down what could only be described as a mech. It wasn't massive per se, but it was large enough to house a person, as apparent by the seat clearly visible at the mech's B center. That's a freaking mech. Naruto's voice came out higher than it had been in 4 years, and it was yet another thing he only idly acknowledged. A mech. You pilot a me. Duh. Penai huffed. She seemed to have finally given up on escaping, instead crossing her arms, blowing a strand of hair that drooped over her left eye. That's so cool. Naruto gushed as he dropped down, earning a cute squeak from the girl upon their easy landing. He set Penai down and began to closely inspect the mech. His name is SP Doctor, spelled with 2 forward slashes, by the way. Penai continued to look annoyed in her explanation. My spider friend and I co-pilot it together. Why? Naruto asked as he continued to take in the fact he was standing before a fully functional mech. It was at least 12 to 15 feet tall in a semi-crouched position, with 2 long mechanical arms that ended in 3 claw-like appendages, along with a similar pair of supporting legs and feet. Its hull was circular in construct and primarily colored in both red and blue. Upon approaching the mech, its bulbous viewport darkened to disple. Pair of emotive LED eyes that seemed to follow him as rounded it, illuminating the dark alley in a vicious red glow. Well, piloting the mech alone would be too much for the human brain to handle, even one as super awesome as mine. Penai began her explanation. That's why No. I mean, why is it spelled like that? Naruto asked, looking over to her. Do we just give up on proper grammar in the future? Well, partially, but no, that's not why. Penai deadpanned before shaking her head. Just get in, pretty boy. Pretty boy. Naruto blushed at the sudden compliment, even if wasn't necessarily meant to be. Me. Pretty was one thing Naruto never considered himself to be. He liked to believe he was of average looks, but if anything, he would have liked to have been considered hand over being pretty. Though a compliment on his looks was in fact a compliment, especially coming from a cute girl like Penai, and it ranked among one of the few he'd ever received. Not counting his mother. Naruto shook his head to dispel the notion. No, Penai was certainly cute, but she was also a year younger than he, and he liked Gwen. And just like with Gwen, they were beaux from another place. It wouldn't do him well to hope for anything. Well, are you getting in or not? Penai pressed. Geez, you sure do blank out a lot, and when you do, not a single thought goes through that smooth brain of yours, huh? You really are a blonde. One thing was certain, and that was he would never understand girls and their cryptic cues. One moment she complimented him and the next she did the opposite. Wait. Reasons. Naruto decided to ignore it for the time being. And how am I supposed to? The mech lurched forward abruptly. One of its clawed hands latched onto the neck of his uniform, picking him up, kicking and screaming, bringing him towards its now open as if it were about to swallow him. Naruto shut his eyes, feeling something powerful surge out from deep within him, a feeling he latched onto by forcing it out as hard as could. He was dropped, falling to the ground with a dull thump, feeling a wave of exhaustion and faint nausea briefly overcome him. That was weird, he muttered, finally opening eyes to find Penai was regarding him, a mixture of awe and confusion. What was that? Penai asked in just above a whisper. What was what? And why did your mech just try and eat me? Naruto asked as he stood on tingling feet, the feeling extending to his hands. It was an odd sensation, much standing after one's legs fell asleep from sitting too long. You're the one who just shocked my SP drive. Penai's awe-inspired expression became accusatory, with a pointed finger for added effect. You just produced an electric field, didn't say you could do that. Also, I told you his name, so say it right, you jerk. Right, Spider. Naruto resisted the urge to roll his eyes, stayed only by his curiosity at what she just said. I did what now? You said it wrong. Penai accused him, her eyes narrowing. His name is SP Doctor, and you called him Spider. If you're gonna shock him, then at least get his name right. What? Naruto didn't understand exactly what he was being accused of. But that's what I just said. No, you said Spider. His name is SP Drive. Penai repeated, using a tone that indicated he was being dumb, and if she weren't speaking absolute nonsense to him. That's what I said, Spider. Naruto argued. No, it's not. You just said Spider. I know. So then say it right. I just did. No, you didn't. Wait, what are we even arguing about here? Naruto asked, feeling as though they were going in circles with no end in sight. How are you spelling SP, Doctor, when you say it? Penai asked, further confusing him. I'm not, because nobody thinks about that when they speak, Naruto muttered. I'm just saying Spider. Spell it out in your head before you say it, Penai demanded. Do it or I won't forgive you. Forgive me for what? Naruto was growing increasingly annoyed by her spontaneity. For shocking my SP, Doctor. Now do it. Penai said. Fine. Naruto snapped, rolling his eyes at what he was being asked to do. SP, drive. Penai smiled brightly at him. Good boy. That wasn't so hard then, was it? I literally said it the same way. Naruto snapped. He took a moment to compose himself so as not to get back into a never-ending argument with her. Can we please talk? What you just said about me shocking your SP drive. Do you seriously not know all your powers yet? Penai appeared genuinely confused by this. Because you kinda just exploded with electricity, short-circuited SP, Dr. Enig. Drop you, and he's pretty well equipped for things like that. I just kinda assumed they were the same as Spider-Man's, and even Gwen's. Naruto wondered what set him apart from the aforementioned. Yano. Super strength, agility, heightened reflexes and all that. Interesting and totally unfair. Say, mind if I poke and prod you? You know, so we can know for what powers you have. Penai's eyes were brimming with excitement, and her SP Doctor's hand became a glinting circular blade that was spinning menacingly with an evil emote to match. Naruto laughed nervously, hoping dearly she was only joking. You're a little scary, he finished, taking a cautious step back. I call it scientific curiosity. Penai grinned at him. Now, if you don't mind, we need to get going, so please don't shock my SP Doctor again. Then don't order it to eat me, Naruto rebutted. He wasn't going to eat you, dummy. I told you to get inside because we're gonna use SP Doctor to sneak past all those people, Penai explained. Naruto looked from the short girl to the large mech. That thing is supposed to get us past a crowd of people. How? My mech's got a number of stealth features you'll just have to see for yourself, Penai smirked. Well, that explains that, but how are we both supposed to fit in there? Naruto asked, pointing to the only operator's seat in the relatively small compartment. Oh, it seemed Penai herself had yet to consider that, her cheeks darkening slightly. I guess we could come back when it's dark. Yeah, that would make more. Penai let out a shout of pain and began to glitch, much like Gwen had before. Penai. Naruto caught her before she fell, managing to keep his hold on her. Are you okay? That's the second time this happened, Penai groaned. It hurts, Naruto. I need to get you home. Naruto helped stabilize Penai and moved towards SP Doctor, who somehow appeared concerned. But to do that, we need to find May Parker. Never before had Naruto ever felt so awkward as he did in that moment, cramped in the mech with Penai seated on his lap as she piloted. The girl herself seemed all Togoth, unbothered by the situation as she bobbed her head to the beat of the loud music and snacked on some popcorn she somehow made. The interior of the mech could only be considered futuristic. They were bathed in a dim red hue and there was no solid controls in sight. The interface was all holographic. Controlled masterfully by Penai as though it was second nature, at times only with a single hand as the other was occupied by popcorner. A soda he was made to hold when was not drinking. The view of the streets from within was interesting. Naruto may or may not have screamed initially as SP Doctor deftly ascended the side of a building, and then down again, entering the New York sewer system. It was a surreal experience for certain, but it was second to the fact he had a cute girl in his lap. Speaking of said girl, Naruto didn't ever think he'd find anyone as cool as Gwen, but that was until he met Penai. With that, a festering feeling of inadequacy as a fellow Radbite recipient. When compared to both girls, and even Spider-Man himself, he felt wholly unprepared. "We should be beneath the neighborhood now," Penai announced as, with a flick of her wrist, she expanded a map of the neighborhood for him to see, a pink variation of Spiderman's logo acting as their location indicator. She shot him a smirk from over her shoulder. "You ready?" "My legs are getting kinda numb," Naruto said in response. With a pout, Penai returned to her piloting. SP Doctor lifted the sewer cover, using its mechanical hand as a periscope, the heads-up display showing a view of the street, and the crowd. They were in an alleyway just by May Parker's home, with police on both ends blocking off access on both ends. "No one's looking, but I can momentarily cloak my SP Doctor, refracting light to blend in with the surroundings. As long as we move slowly, no one should notice," Penai explained. "Have I ever told you how cool you are?" Naruto thought aloud. "This feels like I'm in a video game, or an anime." Penai chuckled lightly with something of a smug smile. "No, but feel free to keep praising me." Before Naruto could respond, Penai maneuvered SP Doctor into the open. A notification appeared on the display, indicating to them they were currently cloaked. They slowly closer to the Parker home's fence, climbing over it near an old beige shed. "I'm gonna leave SP Doctor here, cloaked. We should be able to get close now," Penai said. "The rest is up to you." "Got it," Naruto acknowledged. With a snap and a prompt hiss, SP Doctor's viewport opened up and Penai jumped out with Naruto following closely behind her. They made sure to stick close to the old Privac fence, the boards shrunken from years in the sun. "Do you know what you're going to tell her?" Penai asked in a whisper. Naruto stopped in his tracks. He had no inclination of how he was supposed to approach May and tell her he watched her nephew die. That he was too powerless, despite having the power, to help him. Time of need. Naruto. Penai turned back to look at him with worry evident in her face. "I don't know," Naruto admitted, standing to his full height. "Hey, what are you doing? Get down," Penai called out after him. But Naruto ignored her as he walked up to the back door and knocked. In the moments following that, all he could hear was the distant chatter of the mourners, some even coming together to hum Spider-Man's theme song. Naruto couldn't help but smile at the sound. The door opened to reveal a kind, yet warm-looking older woman he recognized to be May Parker herself. It was apparent she had been crying recently, if her reddened EY were of any indication, and despite this and his trespassing, she offered him a kind smile. "I realize you miss Spider-Man, and though I do appreciate your condolences, I'm going to have to ask you to please leave." "You are trespassing," May said, her voice kind. "I knew Spider-Man," Naruto began, directionless. "I know, young man, everyone did," May acknowledged, her smile growing ever so slightly. "No." Naruto shook his head and found he could no longer hold her eyes, instead looking to his shoes. "No, I mean I was there when it happened. I know who and I have to stop him, but to do that, I'm gonna need your help. You know who killed my husband?" Naruto's head snapped up to find Mary Jane Parker, standing behind May. She also appeared to have been crying recently, but her current expression was stern, angry. Was clear she wanted answers. He just wasn't sure what to say.